Why has no one learned?
I mean, I think part of it is that we have a mass addiction crisis. I think we have a visible addiction crisis with how overweight Americans are. And I think the food industry lies on the fact that, really, it's really sad when you go to an airport or go to a mall and look at how much Americans are struggling with their health. It's nobody wants to be this fat and visibly sick and not able to live a thriving life. I mean, it's just like, it's actually like really dystopian when you think about it. And so I think those folks are being really let down with our compromised food supply and with our scientific guidelines, and now with the medical industry being bought off and literally now saying obesity is genetic and not tied to a lifestyle and just accepting it. But I also think it's hard for people to admit they're doing something wrong. And I think you do have a dynamic, unfortunately, where you have a lot of very sick, traumatized adults who are then passing those habits on to kids, and actually subconsciously, because they're making not great decisions, like want to normalize their behavior by giving kids bad food. I mean, just demonstrably, if you're feeding your kid an ultra processed food diet, high in added sugars, you're poisoning your child. Like you are setting them up just demonstrably for a suboptimal life. If a child is if a child's diabetic by the time they're 30, they're going to live 16 years on average younger than a regular American. Now, 33% of young adults have prediabetes. If your child is overweight, they're going to be 3 times more likely to be depressed or suicidal. So we really are setting our kids back. And I think a part of it is that parents are so addicted and so sick, and that just influences the family dynamics. Why would a parent change their habits for their kids if they're so yeah, I think it's a cultural reset that we need. What I think is really powerful about pointing out the corruption is we're never going to convince the American people that they're doing something wrong to their kids. Like 80% of adults almost are overweight or obese, and then kids are tracking well, with that. We have to rally the American people towards that our institutions have been really compromised, and get them, I think, rightfully angry about that, and have a discussion about a reset. We have a mass drug addiction crisis with our food. It's the most important addiction crisis in the country. And I think having a conversation through the lens of addiction, and do we actually need to unwind this like almost addiction that's happened by our food being weaponized is important. But it's hard for a lot of people to see because it's so omnipresent.
I mean, it's literally everywhere.
Yeah.
I try to take my daughter and drop her off in the Sunday school portion of church.
Right.
And they're giving my kid juice boxes and cupcakes and crackers or cookies. We're like, no, we don't want her to have any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But they're giving it. We try to take her to like a preschool, and everyone's supposed to bring snacks, and they're handing out snacks to all these kids. And we're like, all right, we can't send her here because we don't want to be feeding her all these snacks all day long. Everywhere you take your kid, they are just feeding it to them.
Well, that gets to the addiction crisis. So I actually, this has been a huge interest of mine, just psychologically, what the hell is happening. So I actually have spoken to a number of people that lead daycare facilities and early childhood education, because it's wild. I mean the degree,
and I'm not giving it to them. I don't want her to have it.
No,
but
the degree, yeah,
they're pushing it.
So if you just look at highest level, it just like, if you don't addict someone to drugs, they don't want the drugs. Like kids have gone out through most of human history not like eating processed crap that's like basically a delivery mechanism for like sugar to hit their bloodstream and like have them wanting more. Again, the problem with the cigarette industry moving to food is that they now have a product. As a drug dealer, you want to get people hooked early and you want to get them hooked for life. It's like they literally, based on the government guidance, start giving this food to 6-month-olds, right? That's loaded with added sugar and then also processed, so it's very palatable. So the problem is that parents, by basically following the recommendations, have gotten their kids addicted to this food, which is designed for them to be addicted. And what the daycare administrators tell me is that there's no other way for them to control the kids. It's literally a bunch of drug addicts. So the kids, I mean, think about like
It's
all we
crazy.
have to do is look at ourselves, look at an adult. Our day is dictated by dopamine. Like an average American, all of us, if we're honest, are like rats that are going from one like dopamine hit to the next, whatever it is. It's whether it's coffee or scrolling on social media or porn, which is still like 30% of internet bandwidth, or drinking or drugs. It's like, if we're all honest with ourselves, we're all sex, chasing success, whatever. We're all in this like maze trying to find the next dopamine hit. Like that's true for kids too. So we shouldn't be judging those kids. Like look at an adult, look at ourselves if we're honest with ourselves, if we're like pounding, processed food and it's hard to stop. So how do we expect a 2-year-old to stop? It's like, so they go crazy. They have addiction withdrawals. When they're eating this food and you do a brain scan, it's the exact same reward pathways as taking an illicit drug. So because we have that normalization, daycares see food as a way to placate kids because they literally lose their minds if they don't get it. So that's what the daycare facilitators tell me is it's like their little helper. It's like the way to placate. And I think that's what's happened with parents too, with processed food. And I think it's absolutely just shameful at a moral blind spot that, just TikTok after TikTok and all this communication just normalizes this. Oh, you can't possibly, control what your kid eats. Like all this normalization. We need a Surgeon General to speak plainly and say that we need a reset, a spiritual, cultural health reset for our children. That the scientific guidance is that a parent is essentially committing child abuse for pounding added sugar down their 2-year-old's throat. And the health authority should not be worried about practicability, should not be worried about social justice concerns about affordability of food. That should not be in their purview. It is right now. It should not be in their purview. They should say the truth, which is that we need a reset and stop force feeding ultra-processed food, especially sugar, down our 2-year-olds' throats. Then policy and culture can come from that. But I can tell you, parents are followers. Right now, that daycare where they're giving everyone all that food is following guidelines. All that artificial colorings, all the glyphosate on those grains, it's poisoning our kids, but it's following guidelines. We have to have the medical authorities lead. And it's the medical authorities' job to say the truth. It's interesting to me that, as we mentioned, when it comes to following a rigorous pharmaceutical schedule for kids, no cost is too high. And there's no, single moms can't afford that or don't have time. It's like, no, you are an awful person if you don't follow an exact rigid schedule. But it's all, when it comes to food, when it comes to poisoning our kids, it's, no, a single mom can't afford, a lower income person is too stupid to have an ID to vote and too stupid, to not poison their kids. like how could we possibly expect these dumb poor people to buy anything other than Lunchables for their kids? It's like, that's the type of mindset we have towards the American people. We need more respect and more clarity, the same clarity the medical system speaks to parents to follow a pharmaceutical schedule. We need that type of clarity about what our kids should be putting in their bodies.